Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we see some absolutely ridiculous play with the Phoenix Suns as they come up short in overtime versus the Memphis Grizzlies. And even though we saw some great performances, we ultimately saw some disaster performances overall in the end and some things that were obviously affiliated that weren't involved with the Suns as well. So we're going to be diving in and breaking down all of this and more, going over why this loss was absolutely ridiculous. All of that and more, like I said, on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm Bruce Velez. And before we dive in, I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in, showing your support on the channel as always, as it really is appreciated over here on the channel. And I do want to let you guys know that we will be going live once again this week, Thursday, to break down everything Phoenix Suns related. But in this episode, we're going to be diving in and looking at this post game as we look at the reflections versus the Memphis Grizzlies. So without further ado, let's dive in and let's get into it. Make sure to grab that snack. And there's nothing really a lot to talk about, guys. It's utter ridiculousness at this point. And unfortunately for the Phoenix Suns, this was a good game. This was one where their offense seemed to click. And we'll look through this Suns, stats and stuff like that in a little bit here. But like I mentioned, 148 to 151. The Suns lose to the Memphis Grizzlies. Unfortunately, the Suns shot good though. Shot 50% from the field, shot 50% from three, and ran with a new starting lineup in tonight's contest. They had Kevin Durant, Nick Richards, Bol, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. And this was a new look lineup that really helped out with the Suns. Last time the Suns played against the Grizzlies with Bol, they did use him in the starting lineup, and he was pretty successful versus Zach Edey. So they went with that lineup once again tonight, going double big with having Kevin Durant resulting into that small forward position. And I thought it helped out for the Phoenix Suns. Durant overall in the game played pretty solid in the fourth quarter. Didn't really get the ball as rolling as much, but in overtime was a very impactful piece for the Suns offensively as he was their main bucket getter alongside Bol. And Bol was also very effective. Late in the game did have a missed free throw though, and did have a weird like little tip pass that resulted into something weird, which was not great. But Bol with 23 points, a high for Bol tonight. Absolutely great to see. 8 for 11 from the field. That was nice. Nick Richards, 16 minutes. He didn't really play that much tonight. He got into some early foul trouble and still is showing some signs of trying to find out where he needs to fit in with this Suns rotation. And Devin Booker unfortunately fouled out of this game for the Suns, and someone on the Grizzlies did as well. So we'll get into that in a little bit later. But Booker had a pretty solid game, 10 assists, 28 points. Bradley Beal, once again in the starting lineup, has been very effective, and with 11 assists tonight, him and Booker were distributing the rock. But Beal himself was also being able to be a fluid scorer, 9 for 20 at the field, 4 for 6 from three-point range. It was pretty playing some solid defense as well. And like I mentioned on this channel multiple times, unfortunately with Bradley Beal, it's not the fact that he's a bad player. He just doesn't fit in with this Suns team. And we're seeing right now even with the discrepancies of the defense, him still be able to shine and still look good in the Suns roster with Tyus Jones being out of the starting lineup, which is something the Suns fans wanted to see changed, but didn't necessarily get to see right away, which is really great to see. We also saw guys like Ryan Dunn, once again, not get many minutes. He only played 6 and played 5 total and was thrown in for the last, 15 or seconds. So overtime, didn't see much of the fourth or, you know, overtime, which kind of crazy when the Suns, need some defensive stops to really keep them in this game, as their offense was obviously keeping them afloat for a majority of this game. Tyus Jones didn't play that many minutes tonight, which was great to see, as obviously the Suns didn't have, you know, much of any defensive fallbacks with that. Grayson Allen was impactful on the offensive side, making 6 threes and scoring 21 points. But once again, Grayson Allen, weak offensive foul call, missed a free throw, which allowed Ja to tie the game up. And missing late game free throws is what's going to ultimately cost you some games. And that's what cost the Phoenix Suns this one tonight. Plumlee played pretty solid tonight. 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 7 points, kind of doing everything once again. But it's just the team's just not built to compete realistically. And tonight we saw them have a good offensive showing, like I said, where they were able to distribute with this new lineup, actually look cohesive in some parts of the game, and actually like have good ball movement, which I'm very, very shocked to see with this Suns team. I'm very happy that we were able to see it, but this team was looking like it could resemble, a play-in team, potentially a low-seeded playoff team if they really wanted to be it. But ultimately, the defensive issues are still there. They still lack the grit to be able to stop some of these top-tier teams like Memphis and some of these even worse teams like Toronto, like we just saw a couple days ago. And that's what realistically limits this team, because then they have to go out and score and outscore opponents. If Booker didn't foul out, and if, we want to look at the other players on the Grizzlies here as well, if Jaren Jackson didn't foul out, it would be a completely different game. Jaren Jackson was absolutely dominating versus the Suns teams going off. John Morant didn't turn up too late, so if you'll see those, big three Ja hit, well, guess what? That was the only three that he did hit, but it was just absolutely atrocious. Not being able to box out Brandon Clark at the end of the game before he got that little tip in was absolutely atrocious. The refereeing and officiating in this game was also really bad, with the Suns basically getting no calls as Kevin Durant was getting hacked left and right. But then on the other side, they just gave a random ticky tack foul on Bol Bol. That offensive foul call on Grayson Allen was pretty weak compared to what some of the Grizzlies were doing defensively, playing some hard defense. And like I said, ultimately for this Suns team, it was just another disastrous showing overall. Unfortunately, the game was pretty solid for a majority of the part, but when you lose, it's there's no salvaging anything. Where I'm not as disappointed, I'm not as frustrated, because I'm going into these games now expecting these losses and not being as optimistic. But when you see this team up 4-5 with a couple minutes left, looking like they can maybe beat a playoff team and kind of go into that right direction, and kind of saying, hey, we clicked together on offense. Maybe we struggled a little bit on defense, but that's what we do as a team. We're going to struggle on defense. But if we can get these kind of games in rhythm where we're all striving together, where a game where Booker and Beal can go off, or Beal and KD can go off, or Book and KD can go off, where at least two of the stars can go off, or the other one, is still contributing, giving you at least 20 points in the starting lineup, with other guys realistically delivering, guys like Bol, Richards, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, whoever it is that needs to step up can help out and be a plug and play piece. The Suns can ultimately outscore and compete with some of these teams, but the one caveat of that is that they're always going to get scored on. So if they, depending on how much they are putting balls in the basket, they just got to make sure that they can outdo that. And unfortunately for the Suns tonight, that just wasn't the case, as the Grizzlies late in the game were able to just get some easy buckets late game. Suns struggled with free throws. Overtime had some bad plays and just honestly choked a game that they should have won, which is very, very disheartening. And as a fan, this just ultimately stinks, because now the Suns are just falling further and further back in this play-in race, where they are still in the 11th seed, not in the play-in, not in the playoffs at this moment, with the toughest schedule left going into the NBA, and ultimately questioning what's going to be happening in the offseason. And I want to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Like I said, absolute brutal, ridiculous loss that the Suns just had to deal with today, and it's very, very frustrating. But as someone who is going into it with still some optimism, but little less and less every single day with this team, I'm kind of expecting the losses now, so I'm not going to be frustrated and not be mad if the team does lose, even if they are winning in the fourth quarter with 10-5 or even 2 minutes left. I can still expect the Suns loss to come through fruition. But let me know what you guys ultimately think down below about this Suns team in the comments section, how you guys ultimately feel about this loss, and what your thoughts are with this Suns team. Like I said, thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your night, and go Phoenix Suns. Peace out, everyone.